Welcome to Save As Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Hey everybody, great to be back with you, David D'Arcangelo. Today I'm going to give you my top 5 parts of the employment cycle. I'm going to be coming out with a guide sometime when this video airs in the next week or so about employment, really for anybody, but for people with disabilities, what I like to do is have them go through a process, a path. And I think this works for anybody, but particularly for people with disabilities and employers trying to hire people with disabilities. I think following this path will get you in the right direction, will get you to your destination of becoming employed or hiring people with disabilities. And that's where we'll start. I'd ask you to consider, really, it's a 2-part thing. Yes, it's the person with the disability, and we obviously care about them. We're trying to get people with disabilities access to opportunities for employment. But it's also about the employer, right? You can't be employed without an employer. So we need to think of them as well. We can't just think of one side or the other, just the employee or just the employer. It's both. So with that, let's talk about our cycle and let's talk about our path to prosperity here. To me, it starts with mentoring. If you're a person with a disability, you need to be interested in mentorship. That really is the first step because that's going to get you some exposure into various occupations, various industries. And so from the employer point of view, those mentorship opportunities should be valuable to your organization as well, because that's really going to socialize what you're trying to do as an organization. You're going to be telling the people in your organization, hey, inclusion of people with disabilities or people really of any group, that's going to be important to our organization because, looking at our numbers, we feel we're underrepresented with people with disabilities. They have talent. We are seeking talent. We want to bring that into our organization. So again, win-win for both the employee and the employer with mentoring and mentorships. Really, it's going to be the first introduction into kind of kicking the tires on, are these essential job functions going to line up for the employee? Are they going to work for the employer? So mentorship is step 1 in that cycle. 2, internship. This is really like an extension of the mentorship and really more of a formalized type of thing where now you're putting pen to paper, there's some duties there and there's some expectations and some hours and, so it's a little bit more towards getting a job. It's like that midway point between the mentorship and the interviewing and hiring process. So those internships are valuable. Professionals out there, think back to your first internship. I'd be willing to bet you'd probably even still keep in touch with some of the people at that organization, or certainly maybe it led to something else in your career development. So again, both for persons with disabilities and for the employer, this is an important part of the process because it's going to get some great experience there, both for the employee and for the employer. For the employee, or the potential employee, it's going to really give that person some more in-depth experience as to, am I going to want to do this job on a day-to-day basis? What is interesting to me? What do I need to be trained for? What education do I need to get? And then for the employer, particularly if they're trying to get an intern with a person with a disability, it's going to help them understand what they're going to need to do to provide reasonable accommodations or modify the work environment so they're getting the most talent out of that person and the most ability out of that person with a disability. So that's the second step, is interning. The third step, we don't go right to hiring. We're talking about interviewing here. So if you're a person with a disability, you've got to expect to be able to go on many interviews before you get a job offer. And for the employer, it's making sure that you're being inclusive with your interviewing process and that you're not having questions that are intentionally, hopefully not intentionally, or unintentionally screening out people with disabilities. You want to be inclusive so we can get, again, people with talent who are people with disabilities into this hiring process. And interviewing is a big part of that. So that includes things like the posting the job description, the essential job functions, and making sure that people with disabilities know that you're an equal opportunity employer. And, it's okay also that if the essential job duties, are not very inclusive because of the nature of them, to state that so that people with disabilities don't have expectations that maybe they could do a job that if they don't have the qualifications for, or they can't do those essential job functions. The example I always like to use, if I'm in a power chair and I want to build a skyscraper, that's great. There's a ton of jobs associated with that. But you're probably not going to be able to do the essential job functions for somebody who needs to go out and on that iron and rivet and weld that iron beam, okay? That's not discrimination. That's just saying you can't do those essential job functions. So in that context, in the interview context, we'd want to make sure that that was very clear and those were essential functions of the job. All right, next, we're going to hiring. So obviously, that's the goal of all this. We want to be hired and provide access to opportunities for all of our people, right? So if you're the person with the disability, your goal is to get hired. And if you're the employer, your job is to hire the people with great talent and abilities, of which people with disabilities certainly have that. We've talked about that. So that's the goal, but that doesn't end there. Really, then we're talking about how can people with disabilities and all people in your organization be upwardly mobile? So if you're a person with a disability and you're employed, you just got hired, now you're thinking about how can I be upwardly mobile? How can I be promoted? So promotion is the final step in that cycle. So if you're an employer, really, what do you want? Of course, you don't want people just in one place and stagnating. No, you want them to be able to grow with your organization as they develop more experience, to be able to get all of the talent out of them and really maximize their ability, because that's going to help your organization. It's also going to help the person with the disability. And then guess what? If you're getting promoted, it's time to go right back to the beginning and start mentoring the next generation. So this cycle repeats itself. And as we know, the nature of employment in America and in the world really has changed significantly. It used to be, generations ago that you settled into, you'd have a couple of jobs and then you'd settle into one job and you'd be there 25 or 30 years and you'd get the gold watch and see you later. Much less true now. We know through the JOLT data that people change jobs now every 6 months, a year, 18 months. I think the median is somewhere around 18 months. So moving from job to job is very common now, and it's part of the employment and employee process. So again, this is a cycle. We're coming out with a guide here. So I just wanted to expose you to that. To me, it is a path. It is not just one step. It's all of these steps, from mentoring, getting some understanding of what it is you want to do, to interning and starting to get some experience, to interviewing, and that whole process where you got to be prepared and patient and, persevere through all of the interviews and processes that you have to finally getting hired, but staying upwardly mobile and going towards promotion. So it's a process. It's a path. The path to prosperity is paved by perseverance. We know that. Maybe a little bit more for people with disabilities. You got to hang in there, but you can do it. We all have ability. We're all in various states of ability. This is Save as Ability. David D'Arcangelo. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time. For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save as Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save as Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David Darkangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.